Welcome back, David Hertel in for Elias. Well, Hydro-Québec has been in the news a lot lately, whether it's recurring power outages, especially in the West Island. CJD 800 listeners know about those. Also, news that now, because we don't have enough Hydro-Québec has to buy from private producers, Résolu, Produits Forestiers Résolu, selling energy, much needed energy to Hydro-Québec. Pierre Fitzgibbon saying, hey, we're going to have to run the dishwashers at midnight, and talking about the fact that we have much more energy needs that we can produce right now. Also, stories about the monopoly of Hydro-Québec being questioned by the Legault government. Maybe a bill is in the works in the National Assembly when it resumes sitting at the end of the month. Pierre Fitzgibbon might introduce a bill that for the first time in 60 years will modify Hydro-Québec's monopoly on energy production and selling energy. Private companies could sell energy to each other without Hydro-Québec being in the middle of that. So a lot of questions to ask our next guest. Philippe Dunsky is the president of Dunsky Energy and chair of Canada Electricity Advisory Council. Philip, thank you very much for your time this morning.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
So, Philip, the first general question, not an easy one, but when you look at Hydro-Québec and all the issues surrounding it right now, how do you feel about Quebec's energy posture right now?
Well, I guess it depends if you're talking, very, very short term, what's right in front of us right now, or long term.
Right.
Maybe I can just start with long term. I don't think there's a place in North America that is better positioned to win in the energy transition and in the race that's going on economically than Quebec in terms of electricity. So I'm extremely, extremely bullish about how we're positioned. In the very short term, right in front of us, we're in the midst of a transition. It's an energy transition. It's also about climate, but that transition, it's a challenge, and we're at a turning point in it. And when you hit those sudden turning points, right, everyone gets caught a bit flat-footed, and that's the case here. And quite frankly, my clients are I got utilities all across North America as clients. They're all in the same position. Everyone is caught a bit flat-footed because all of a sudden everyone is turning to electricity to reduce emissions.
So I want your take. I'm going to ask you like lightning round style questions because I know these are very complex issues. But so issue one, for example, the status of the network. There's a Vérificatrice Générale report dates back to December 2022 saying we're far behind on maintaining the network. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think we saved a bit of money in the near term by putting off some maintenance investments, and now we're caught by that. So we're going to have to invest more now. And I know that the Hydro-Québec's latest plan actually announced major investments in maintenance and the whole grid, in fact, to improve reliability. So we have to play catch up on that.
The Michael Sabia plant. So when we read in the news, we have to produce about half of what we're producing right now more by 2035. But when we look at our energy consumption, we're still very wasteful as consumers here in Quebec. We have these deals with industrial clients, the export deals, and yet we are still very much dependent on fossil fuels for our energy needs in Quebec. Yes, Hydro-Québec is very good. We're very well positioned, as you're saying, long term, but we don't seem to be able to turn that corner. How do you feel about this situation?
Well, I wouldn't say that, actually.
Okay.
I think that we're in the process of turning the corner, and sometimes the turn of the corner takes a bit of time, right? The corner isn't a sharp edge; it's a little bit of a round thing. So, we're coming out of the round part of the turn. I think if you look at what's happening with electric vehicles in Quebec, you see them shooting up. There's more people buy electric vehicles in Quebec than anywhere else in the country. And we just adopted legislation to make sure that goes even faster. I think you're seeing obviously a lot of industrials looking to use electricity instead of burning fossil fuels to reduce their emissions. I mean, everyone is turning to electricity now to reduce their emissions, and so that's a good thing. But in the near term, it definitely puts pressure on the grid, and that's where, like you said, Michael Sabia's plan comes into effect, and Hydro-Québec is going to have to invest pretty significantly to be able to provide all that additional electricity to replace all that fossil fuel consumption. Which, by the way, is challenging in terms of cost, right? Because it means that we all have to pay a bit more on the electricity side. But the thing to remember too is we all have to pay a lot less for fossil fuels when that happens. So overall, this is a real win for Quebec consumers. It's just that you're going to see some bills go up and others go down.
So 2 big stories last week. What's your reaction to these? One, Hydro-Québec seems to be leaning on private producers because right now, as you're saying, in this transition period, we don't seem to have enough energy when we need it the most, when we have very cold weather. But also this news that Hydro-Québec's monopoly on the producing, buying, selling of hydroelectricity may be coming to an end. A lot of people, especially on the nationalist side, are saying, hold on a second, you can't touch to that sacred cow, which is the Hydro-Québec monopoly. Your thoughts?
I think that sometimes sacred cows are are built up bigger than they are. The truth is that let's start with your first question, private power producers.
Yeah.
So, we've had private power producers for decades and decades, but especially the past 20 years, most of what we've built in Quebec has been built by private power producers, and Hydro-Québec is contracted with them. And there's been no problem with that, right? So they built all the wind, essentially all the wind farms are owned by private power producers, and that's okay. And so that's continuing. Now, the new thing that you're talking about in terms of, quote unquote, breaking up the monopoly, this is when you work elsewhere in a continent, where there are far fewer monopolies, you look at what we're talking about doing in Quebec, and it is extraordinarily small potatoes. And we're talking about opening up just a tiny bit to allow certain large industrial customers who want to set up shop in Quebec, who wouldn't otherwise be able to get electricity from Hydro-Québec fast enough. Talking about allowing them to contract for their own power directly, as long as that power is essentially right next to their operations. So this is not deregulating the whole system. This isn't breaking anything up. This is, I would say, a small modification to the current status quo.
And do you feel we're paying too little for a hydro here in Quebec? Should we be paying more?
You started out saying, I know these things are complex, right? So,
and I want you to solve this in 30 seconds or less.
All right. In 30 seconds or less. I don't think that we pay too little, but I think that we probably pay wrong in the sense that we probably need to pay more at some times of the year and some times of the day and less during others. And that would have been really tough to do a number of years ago. But now with all these smart devices where we can just tell our devices, hey, you know what, instead of launching the laundry now, I want you to launch it in 3 hours from now or when the price drops. I mean, that's happening everywhere around the world now, and there's no reason that we can't do that as well.
Very interesting insights. Thank you so much for your precious time this morning, Philip. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure to talk with you, David.
Philip Dunsky, president of Dunsky Energy and chair of the Canada Electricity Advisory Council. Just so you know, Philip Dunsky is one of the top energy minds in Quebec and across the country. So this is one angle, but it's definitely a debate that we're going to have over the following weeks and months. We're going to try to get other sides to this very important question about our energy future.